Coming to you from sunny South Carolina, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show with your host, Jim Lee. From the upstate to the low country, from the coast to Columbia, we'll cover what's right and uncover what's wrong in the Palmetto State. If we see it, we say it. We call it like it is in South Carolina. And now, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show. Let's jam.
And welcome into the Palmetto Conservative Show here on the Conservative Broadcast Media Network. I'm your host, Jim Lee, part political junkie, part technology geek, part commentator, and sometimes snarky agitator for the application of common sense and the pursuit of critical thinking in the marketplace of ideas, particularly as it relates to the Palmetto State. I don't profess to have all the answers, just an awful lot of relevant questions. Welcome into the post-2012 general election edition of the Palmetto Conservative Show. Difficult show to do tonight. No, not because I'm nearly catatonic and depressed over the election results, but we'll talk about that this evening. But rather, it's unfortunate that we still don't have the technical issues resolved, enabling me to actually take calls and have guests on the program. So it's time for me to lay down on the couch, put my feet up, and begin the 2-hour cathartic exercise that I am so blessed to enjoy. Here is your host on the Palmetto Conservative Show. Usual and customary disclaimer here on the Palmetto Conservative Show. I'm not here to simply give a speech. I'm not here to display rancor or vituperation, or really to ensue bitterness. I'm not here to use incendiary language, nor am I here trying to incite violence, but rather I am here hoping to inflame your senses, so that perhaps we can have a little bit more of something we desperately need here in the marketplace of ideas, and that's more critical thinking. Well, it's in the books. What seemed like a 22-year, but was really only a 2-year campaign for President of the United States is finally over. The election was yesterday, and unless you've been living under a rock, you recognize that President Obama was in fact reelected to another term in office. Never thought I'd be so happy for the constitutional amendment limiting the president from no more than 2 terms in office. But it is what it is. Tonight I want to talk a little bit and, if you will, put in your mind a perspective beyond mere ideology and one beyond political parties. We need to segue into an area that we spend far too little time these days, and that's a dimension of sight and sound called reality. Here we are. It is November 7th, 2012. And the die has been cast. We know who the president for the last 4 years has been, and we know who the president for the next 4 years will be, and he is one and the same. We know that since 2006, the Democrats have controlled the United States Senate. We know that we have a divided government, as we have had for the last 4 years. Actually, as we've had since 2006. But from 2006 to 2010, it was controlled exclusively by the Democrats. That'd be 2008 through 2010. The entire government was controlled exclusively by the Democrats. But since 2006, the Democrats have held control of the Senate. So we know what we have. And here are the facts. These aren't ideological facts. These aren't partisan facts. These are facts. And fact is, we have not had a budget, a federal budget, in going on 4 years. We have annual budget deficits in excess of $1 trillion for 4 years running. We have over $16.2 trillion in debt. We are in the middle of more than one international conflict in which our troops, our American armed forces, are in harm's way. We have an economy that has been limping along for more than 4 years, with gross in the domestic product languishing roughly in the 2% or less mark. We have unemployment that continues to hover at the 8% level if you believe the statistic itself. But it is a fact as an indicator. It is one that tells us that things are not well. Everything that I just mentioned to you is a fact. It is a fact that the Social Security system is going to be bankrupt. It is on a trajectory towards bankruptcy. It is a fact that Medicare is on a trajectory to be bankrupt in just a very few years. That's reality. It's not the world as I choose to see it. It's not the world as I'd like it to be. It is, in fact, reality. Now, you can get into an ideological discussion about why that reality is so. You can get into a partisan argument about whether the Republicans are responsible for it, the Democrats are responsible for it, even though the answer to that question is yes, both of them are responsible for it. But it doesn't answer the larger question. What do you do with those facts? Now, regardless which side of the political persuasion you may hold, I think that reasonable people should be able to agree that we must do something with those facts. Of course, doing nothing is in fact choosing to do something with those facts. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away, but then it does confirm that the status quo is the direction you choose. Now, I, for one, long for some adult leadership that is willing to step up and do something with those facts, to stop treating us like mushrooms, stop treating the American people like mushrooms who are stuck in a corner in the dark and fed nothing but bovine fecal matter. But I long for leadership that would step forward and put forth the bold ideas necessary to deal with these problems. And I don't care where they come from. Now, personally, I don't think that John F. Kennedy would actually be accepted in the Democrat Party of today, but if a Democrat came forward with a reasonable domestic fiscal policy, or a set of domestic fiscal policies, to deal with these facts as I've enumerated them to you, then I would like to see some adults on both sides of the aisle come together and engage in some productive adult dialogue towards dealing with the facts and not worrying about who gets credit, or conversely, who can tear the other side down fastest. I'm not interested in bipartisanship for bipartisanship's sake. Mark Levin, in his rant today, in his unvarnished truth, made a point about the fact that, bipartisanship in the pursuit of tyranny is not a good thing. Or as I said when I campaigned for Congress, bipartisanship in the pursuit of bad legislation still produces bad legislation. We need adult leadership because these are the facts. And if we choose not to deal with them, then shame on us. Shame on what we are doing as adults and what we are leaving behind on the backs of our children and grandchildren. Now, as I said at the top of the show, am I pleased with the outcome of yesterday's elections? No, I am not. But I cannot sit idly by, just throw up my hands and climb into a corner and just say, woe is me and the end is near. Because I, for one, cannot stomach the thought of leaving this mess for our children and grandchildren. One that they did not create, one that we created. That's where we are today. That's the reality, whether we like it or not. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for two reasons. Number one, I know that my eternal future is secure, and that my hope is in the divine providence that was responsible for this country coming together in the first place. But I'm also hopeful because I believe, like me, there are many other like-minded adults of varying political and ideological persuasions who are willing to come together, to get together, to address the issues we face, if for no other reason, for our children and our grandchildren. We'll come back and take on the Kakistocracy for this week. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you being here today. You're listening to the Palmetto Conservative Show here on the Conservative Broadcast Media Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is not a message of happiness or reassurance. It is a crisis of confidence. The productivity of American workers is naturally dropping.
We aren't out there hungry, selling America. We've been a little bit lazy, I think, over the last couple of decades.
The symptoms of this crisis of the American spirit are all around us.
We've lost our ambition, our imagination.
Owning things and consuming things.
You go to a bank and you use an ATM. You don't go to a bank teller.
All the legislation in the world can't fix what's wrong with America.
The country that had gotten a little soft.
These changes did not happen overnight.
Change cannot happen overnight. What can we do? We've been a little bit lazy.
I was in chronic pain, and my family struggling to make ends meet, food and gas prices going up,